Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving headfirst into something pretty challenging, provocative stuff. It's excerpts from Friedrich Nietzsche's Ecce Homo.
Yeah, Ecce Homo, it's basically Nietzsche on Nietzsche, right?
Exactly. Think of it like his autobiography, but, with a sledgehammer. He's dissecting his own life, his work, his whole mission.
That transvaluation of all values.
That's the one. And we've got some related poems, too, from around the same time. They add another layer.
Definitely. Ecce Homo is just, it's unique. It's him looking back saying, this is what I was about, this is why I matter.
Yeah.
And it's not some dry academic thing. It's personal, raw sometimes, written when his health was, well, declining.
Right. So our mission here in this deep dive is basically to unpack that self-portrait he paints.
Okay.
What's he really saying about himself, about his philosophy? What can we, take away from this really unconventional viewpoint?
It is unconventional, polemical, even poetic at times.
It's a wild ride. So let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's do it. I mean, the tone is set right away, isn't it? The chapter titles alone.
Oh, yeah. Why I am so wise. Why I am a fatality.
Why I write such excellent books. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this isn't exactly humble pie, is it? It's a declaration.
Absolutely. He says his name will be tied to something huge, formidable, a crisis, a clash of consciences.
He literally calls himself dynamite.
He does.
It's not just about having impactful ideas. He sees himself as this, necessary destructive force to clear the ground.
That's the core image right at the start.
Yeah.
Super provocative.
And he makes this distinction straight away, doesn't he? He's not a religious founder.
Right. Religion is for the mob, he says.
Yeah. Instead, he claims he's the first decent human being, which is quite a claim.
It is. And his reasoning is fascinating. He says it's because he was the first to see truth by recognizing falsehood as falsehood.
That famous line, "My genius resides in my nostrils."
Exactly. Like he can just sniff out the lies, the deceit.
So he sets himself up as this man of fate. He thinks he's starting this, spiritual warfare, grand politics even.
Arguing that the old orders, society based on these falsehoods, they're just going to be blown away.
Yeah, blown into space, I think he says. It's him against millennia of belief systems.
Which brings us to something really crucial. He talks about where his thinking comes from.
Ah, yes, the body, his physical state.
Right. He's really clear, isn't he? He says it was illness that first brought him to reason.
Pulled him away from idealism, as he puts it.
That connection, body, health, philosophy, truth, it's absolutely central in Ecce Homo.
And he gets really specific, doesn't he, about
Right.
what mattered physically.
Oh, yeah. Nutrition, where he lived, the climate, how he recovered.
He talks about having this delicate sensorium, like he could measure atmospheric moisture, and how certain places just made him suffer physically. Naumburg, Leipzig, Ball, Venice.
Ill-starred places for someone like him, he says.
And based on all this sensitivity, he gives some, pretty practical advice.
If a bit idiosyncratic sometimes.
True. Like heavy meals are easier to digest than small ones. Know your stomach size. Avoid interminable meals.
He even recommends cocoa and oil to start the day, which is interesting.
And don't get him started on sitting still.
Yeah. Remain seated as little as possible. That's a big one for him.
And he says basically, don't trust any thought that wasn't born outside with your body moving.
Where even the muscles celebrate a feast. Love that image.
He puts it so bluntly, too. All prejudices take their origin in the intestines.
Wow.
And sitting around all day. That's the real sin against the Holy Spirit.
So this isn't just like quirky health tips.
Not at all. He's saying your ability to think clearly, to grasp truth, it's tied to your digestion, your exercise. It's radically materialist.
Grounding his most abstract ideas in the body.
Yeah.
And this whole physical discipline thing connects to his idea of great healthiness.
Right, which isn't just about not being sick.
No, it's the fundamental physiological state you need for the Zarathustra type, the life affirmer.
And it's not static, is it? It's something you constantly acquire, even sacrifice.
Right, in the pursuit of deeper knowledge.
Yeah.
And this health, he argues, lets you explore everything, play with things that used to be sacred.
He calls people who do this dangerously healthy.
I like that. Dangerously healthy.
That feeling of being separate,
Yeah.
dangerously healthy, leads right into his title for himself, immoralist.
Yeah, he wears it like a badge of honor, doesn't he? Sets him apart from everyone else.
Actually.
And he explains it involves two main negations tied to his whole transvaluation idea.
Okay, what are they?
First, he denies the type of person usually seen as the highest, the good, kind, charitable folks. He sees them as decadent.
Okay.
And second, He denies the whole system of morality itself.
He talks about idols, right? Traditional ideals like goodness or truth having legs of clay.
Exactly. And his job, his fatality, is to knock them over.
Which is where the transvaluation of all values comes in. That's his core formula.
Right. He thinks reality, the actual world, has been stripped of its value because we invented these fake ideal worlds.
The lie of the ideal, he calls it.
So the transvaluation is about reversing that, reevaluating everything based on life affirmation, not these otherworldly ideals.
And his sharpest criticism here is aimed squarely at Christian morality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He sees it as the prime example of this lie of the ideal.
Calls it anti-nature. Says it denies basic life instincts.
Elevates weakness, anemia, to an ideal. Promotes contempt for the body, sees sex as impure.
And things like selflessness, losing your ballast, neighbor love, those are seen as good. But natural self-love is evil.
He sees it as a recipe for decadence. Or maybe worse.
Worse.
Yeah, like a strategy for the priest type to gain power, make people sick, pathologize their instincts.
So they become dependent on the priests and their abstract ideas for salvation or meaning.
Exactly. He thinks that's the game.
And he goes further, listing core concepts like soul, spirit, free will, God.
Yeah, he calls them lying concepts designed for physiological ruin. It's a full frontal assault on these foundational ideas.
Wow. Total opposition.
Which really shapes how he sees interacting with other people.
Yeah, his idea of humanity sounds tough.
It does. He says it's not about easy empathy. It's a perpetual process of self-mastery. Meaning it's a discipline to endure understanding others, especially their weaknesses and lies, without getting dragged down yourself.
Endurance seems right. And he really stresses his need for solitude, doesn't he?
Oh, hugely. He calls it recovery, return to myself, the breathing of free, crisp, bracing air.
His whole Zarathustra, he says, is basically a hymn to solitude. He needed that space to create.
And his way of dealing with opposition or foolishness is distinctive.
Yeah, no direct confrontation.
Right. His retaliation is to set a piece of his own cleverness at its heels. Basically, outshine the foolishness with brilliance. Let the work fight back.
And then there's his view on rudeness, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is. He calls it the most humane form of contradiction in this modern effeminacy he dislikes.
Suggesting it's more honest than, like, subtle resentment from people who are too weak for directness.
Exactly. Better a sharp truth than a hidden weakness.
But even with that, he admits struggling with this deep loathing of mankind, the rabble.
He contrasts his own struggle with Zarathustra's path.
How so?
Zarathustra finds deliverance not by engaging, but by soaring above it all, dwelling in purity, building these metaphorical mountains, living like the wind above the lowlands.
He also talks about the silence he felt from others, didn't he, as his ideas developed?
Yeah, this uncanny silence and feeling of revolt. He felt that making your distance felt through different values wounds deeper than anything.
And he complains specifically about his friends, his old academic colleagues.
Right, not reading his work properly, just dismissing Zarathustra as, like, unwarrantable arrogance.
And he contrasts that intellectual dismissal so sharply with the kindness of the market women in Turin.
Yeah, who'd pick out the sweetest grapes for him. It's a really poignant contrast.
Shows his feeling of isolation, maybe? Intellectual isolation versus simple human connection.
Definitely. He says suffering from solitude is one thing, but suffering from the multitude is the real problem.
Knowing from a young age that human speech wouldn't really reach him, that's quite a statement of alienation.
It really is. Suggests a fundamental disconnect from how most people think and talk.
Okay, maybe we should shift gears slightly and look at how he presents his own major works in Ecce Homo. He sees them as steps, right?
Absolutely. Distinct phases in his mission. He starts with the birth of tragedy.
Introducing the Dionysian and Apollonian, that core tension.
Right, and arguing that Greek tragedy managed to overcome pessimism by synthesizing them. He also fits Socraticism into that framework, seeing it as decadent.
And notes that it mostly ignored Christianity at that stage.
Yeah, his focus was elsewhere early on. Then came the thoughts out of season,
which he describes as thoroughly warlike.
Proof he wasn't just a dreamer. He says he delighted in attacking the blockheads of modern ideas.
Then human, all too human, that marks a shift.
A big one.
Yeah.
He calls it a memorial of a crisis, purging idealism after the break with Wagner.
And the tone changes, right? Clever, cool, hard.
Exactly. And he explicitly links himself to Voltaire here. Admires his skepticism, his intellect.
Okay, then the dawn of day, this is where he really goes after morality itself.
Yeah, opens the campaign directly against morality. He calls it a yay-saying book.
Why yay say?
Because it shines a light on things previously called evil, gives them back their right to exist, in a way.
And it's the one that ends with just or. That question mark.
Very provocative ending. Then comes joyful wisdom, or Legaya Scienza.
Profound and playful, he says.
Yeah, and the birthplace of Zarathustra's main idea, the eternal return.
And that concept of Gaia Scienza itself.
Right, the singer, knight, free spirit, all rolled into one. A new kind of philosopher, light but deep. He even mentions a dance song in it, To the Mistral.
Symbolizing dancing on the corpse of old morality.
Pretty much. Which leads directly into Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
His greatest gift, he calls it.
Zarathustra embodies that great healthiness, the Superman.
Strong enough for reality, no comforting ideals needed, capable of affirming everything.
That tremendous and unlimited saying of yea and amen. He sees the book itself as beyond poetry, inventing the dithyramb for it.
And throwing a fishing rod to lonely people who might get him.
Yeah. Then there's the case of Wagner, that complex relationship.
Right. He frames the critique in Ecce Homo a bit strangely, doesn't he? Like attacking an unknown person.
Yeah, while admitting he held back the really personal stuff because he loved Wagner.
But he uses it to really lay into the Germans, too.
Oh, absolutely. Calls them psychologically unclean, lacking depth, no psychologists. Says German could become an insult for psychological depravity. It's harsh.
Wow. Deeply personal and cultural critique mixed in there.
Definitely. And finally, Twilight of the Idols.
This is where he says the transvaluation formula really starts, clearly laid out.
Yeah, showing how everything was standing on its head before him because of the ideal.
And he declares he alone has the criterion for truths. Bold claim.
Extremely bold. It all ties back to his mission.
So, thinking about all this work, what about his view of his own style and inspiration?
Well, style for him wasn't just decoration. It was about communicating inner tension, energy.
Which is why he claimed to have the most multifarious art of style ever, reflecting his inner complexity.
Exactly. And his description of inspiration is intense.
Almost mystical, you said.
Yeah.
Involuntary.
Yeah, like lightning, immense ecstasy, tears sometimes, feeling totally out of hand.
But also this peak feeling of power, freedom, divinity, becoming itself, he connects it to.
The dynamic force of existence flowing through him.
And he claims he invented the dithyramb as a form for this.
As the form to capture that soaring affirmative expression, that wild poetry or prose.
And then there's that other claim, being the first psychologist without peer.
Right, and specifically the first psychologist of the eternally feminine, which is a lot.
Yeah. He says women generally like him, but then immediately adds these really negative comments about certain types.
Emancipated women, these amiable maenads. It's a strange mix, that grand claim and the cutting remarks right after.
And the poems scattered through his work, like the ones we mentioned, The Word, Among Foes, The Beacon.
They're another outlet, aren't they? Showing different facets, critique, struggle, symbolism, in a really compressed, artistic way.
So wrapping this up, we've gone through this incredibly intense, personal, confrontational self-assessment. Nietzsche seeing himself as this necessary force, a harbinger of crisis, ready to tear down old values, deeply tied to his body, his health.
And fundamentally opposing the moralities and ideals that dominated his time and arguably still dominate ours.
It's a perspective that definitely refuses to be ignored, wasn't looking for approval.
Not at all. Which leads to a final thought, maybe, something he wrote that we touched on.
Go on.
He says, "My time has not yet come either. Some are born posthumously."
Ah, yes. Born posthumously. What does that really mean? For a thinker, any creator, to believe their real impact isn't now, but later.
Yeah, how does that idea affect how we look at challenging ideas today? Ideas that seem uncomfortable or just radically different.
Are we open to the possibility that some things, some insights might only be truly understood long after the person is gone?
What does it mean to be born posthumously, intellectually or culturally? To be waiting for a future audience that can finally hear you?
Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.